to a new edition of the PodcAls. I'm Joey Alfieri with you as always. And we remind you that the CFL free agency is just over a week away, opening on the 13th. This is being recorded on Tuesday, the 6th in the morning of February, of course, and free agency begins on the 13th. There's been a lot of news. First of all, we have a special guest that will join us, Walter Fletcher, running back for the Alouettes, who signed a brand new deal last week. A one-year contract will join us. We'll talk to Walter Fletcher about, we'll preview the Super Bowl a little bit, his relationship with William Stanback, and we'll also get into what the 2024 season means to him and how important it is for him to perform on the field. Took a gamble, signed a one-year contract with the Owls, and so we'll see how it all comes together and how it all plays together and what it looks like for a guy who's going to go into training camp as the top running back on the depth chart on the American side. Anyway, of course, Joshua Antwi's back, so Fletcher and Antwi might make up the duel, but you never know. As we found out last year, a lot of newcomers to the CFL could make an impact as well, but it sure seems like Walter Fletcher and that dual threat can run with the ball, can catch the ball, make plays like that. It looks like he's going to be a big factor in the offense in 2024. He'll join us a little bit later on. We do have some news in the CFL world. Of course, there's it's not really called the tampering window, but we'll call it that for the sake of conversation here. But the communication window can start, teams can start talking to potential free agents. And there are a lot of guys on the move, reportedly, of course. It looks like Dalton Schoen and Brady Oliveira are staying in Winnipeg, which is crazy because at one point it didn't look like either one of those guys would stay. I didn't really think Oliveira would leave, but just he's a guy from there, so I didn't think he would leave, and he ends up staying. Dalton Schoen, it was announced in the afternoon that he is back with the Bombers, so that's big. Those are two very big signings. Winnipeg, of course, losing Hardrick to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, their right tackle, Jamarcus Hardrick. So there's some moves being made. Toronto took a little bit of a hit today. Darius Pickett signed in Ottawa. They lost Jamal Peters reportedly to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Javon Leake, the returner, is on his way to Edmonton. AJ Ouellette, their starting running back, is off to Saskatchewan. So they've lost some bodies out there as well. And of course, the news, there's other signings that have happened. Go to CFL.ca for all the latest info there. But of course, the news that'll hit home the most with Alouettes fans, of course, is William Stanback has agreed to a deal with the BC Lions. So William Stanback is going out west. And he'll be rejoining Vernon Adams Jr. I know the two are very tight. So Vernon Adams and William Stanback will be playing together again as Stanback is going to the BC Lions. All quiet on the Montreal front. Not a ton going on, which I think is to be expected. If you were expecting a big splash, I think Danny Machocha has made it pretty clear that they don't have a ton of caps flexibility to make these big moves, but that's only because they re-signed most of their players. When you look at all the other teams, look at Toronto, look at Hamilton, look at Winnipeg, there's a lot of free agents there. A lot of teams are going to be losing a lot of starters. Montreal has lost a couple as of right now, and Mac and Uguak to the NFL. They've lost, Stanback, of course, was another one too. So those are the guys that they've lost as starting players so far. So not a ton of free agents that are out there for the Alouettes. And so, re-signing Lemon and re-signing Mustafa Johnson and re-signing Darnell Sankey, re-signing Tyrese Beverett, all those guys will come at a cost. So that's what it is. That's what we're looking at right now. All quiet on the Montreal front, which is good because I think I know there's a temptation to go out there and you want to add free agents and you want to spend the money. I get it. I understand all that. It's fun to be a fan at this time of year. You want to project and say, hey, I want to go get this guy. And Lord knows, I mean, I've heard from enough Alouettes fans that have said, they absolutely need Matthew Betts, or they should sign AJ Ouellette. And look, maybe a move like that happens. Ouellette, obviously, we mentioned committed to Sask, but I don't know if a Betts is going to happen or not. Would it be nice? Absolutely. But I think you have to look at it this way. In professional football, and the CFL in particular, there's so much turnover to the roster every single year that when you can bring back the majority of your starters, um, and the majority of your core, obviously you want to go out there and you want to get better. You don't want to bring back the same team, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to bring back the exact same team. Anyways, they can't because there's some guys that are already gone. But I think you want to improve the roster, but you want to try to keep your core together. And I think that's what the Alouettes have done. So does that mean it's going to be a little bit more quiet for the Alouettes fan base on Twitter when free agency rolls around? Potentially, you never know. Things can happen. Trades can happen. You can clear cap space and whatnot. Maybe something happens, but I think you have to look at the month of December, the month of January, and those were your big months as Alouettes fans. Is flexing that you got to keep Sankey and you got to keep Lemon and all those guys and company and Bev and all those guys. So look, that's where I'm looking to right now. I think that's what you need to find encouraging is when you have that continuity in professional football. And it's not bad continuity. This is the team that won the championship. But when you have that continuity, it's big. One of the guys that re-signed last week is joining us right now. He's Alouettes running back Walter Fletcher, who signed a one-year deal for the 2024 season. Fletch, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Nothing much, Joey, man. Nice to see you, man. Nice to talk to you as well, man. Excited, very excited. Can't wait to get going. And I'm happy to be back for a third season, man. Never would have thought, getting traded here that I would be here for 3 years. So excited, man.
Okay,
Excited.
before we get into you signing the deal and all that stuff, you mentioned the trade. I know we're a few years removed. I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this, but do you have a funny trade story? Like, did you find out like waking up from a nap, or like how was it, or was it just a regular, boring old, hey, you're going to Montreal?
Honestly, it was an off day. It was a Monday. I was, just in the crib in the house, just relaxing, and got a call from G Roy, the GM at Edmonton. And literally, I saw it was a BC number. So I was just like, okay, I'm in Edmonton. I played in BC, but don't have any connections there. So I kind of figured it was G-Roy. And yeah, man, just kind of got that call and didn't know, what would come out of it. But it's been a blessing so far. So it was the right decision, both sides.
So take me through your mindset this winter. I mean, with free agency, I don't have to tell you, there are a lot of running backs that are scheduled to become free agents, Stanback being one of them, and we'll get into Will a little bit later on. But, I'm just curious what your mindset is of deciding to sign before free agency and sticking with, the team and the city that you had been with the last almost 2 full years.
Yeah, man, there's talent all over this league, man. Going into this, my rookie year, first thing I noticed was the running backs, and it was a three-down system. And there's a lot of talent out there. Guys like Jamal Murrow, Kadeem Carey, Stanback, AJ, Brady. I want to see all those guys get paid. But for myself, with just the whole Stanback situation, just felt like there's an opportunity here in Montreal, like you mentioned, just being here for 2 seasons previously. Being around the city, the fans. Like always talk about the fans being at when I come home. It's like the atmosphere in Montreal is just second to none. Like it really gives you that college feel where like the fans are on top of you. After the games, the kids come up to you, the fans show you love, and that really sticks. That really stuck with me. At the end of the season and just being here. So going into free agency, it was more about, like I said, the right fit and just having a place you can call home. Montreal has been my home. I feel like I've been treated here very well. I have a good relationship with my teammates, the staff. The whole organization. I feel like it's respect on both sides. So for me, it was just more about opportunity rather than trying to chase something else. But like I feel like I made the right decision and happy to get that out of the way because when you wait, sometimes it could hinder you. It could
Yeah.
hinder your situation. So I felt like I made the right decision. I'm happy with it.
So what's the messaging now? Like you're the top dog going into camp. Like, is that the mindset? I'm sure that's the mindset you have every year. But with Stanback out the door, Antwi's back, and there's going to be some new guys to the CFL. But how do you anticipate this? Like, how do you anticipate the opportunity? How would you describe it?
For me, being in the system last year, I feel like it's always an advantage for any organization, any team that you're on, whatever level you play on. Having a year in the system, gives you an advantage at some point. But at the end of the day, like I saw the receiver position last year is competition. They brought in a lot of guys. Antwi's back, brought in a lot of dogs, man. From just down south or free agency guys. And for me, every year it's just about competing. Let the rest take care of itself. For me it's just about showing what I can do every single day and working hard. That's what's got me to this point here in Montreal. Like I mentioned, the third season here in the CFL as an American is extremely rare. So for me, it's just having that chip on my shoulder and, finally trying to get the opportunity to show the league, show everyone what Walter Fletcher brings to the table. And, I don't think about RB1, RB2, whatever. It's just about, you know, being a familiar offense and showcasing the things that I do. So just excited, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Excited.
excited for you. It's funny you mentioned having a year under your belt in the system because there's a lot of guys, especially offensively, that came into the beginning of the year and they're like, yo, this is a lot to take in. Like, this is a lot. How would you best describe Jason Moss's offensive system and learning it? How challenging was that?
Man, I will tell you, last year, Coach Moss, AC, Mike, the entire staff kind of challenged me. Last year we tried to do a three-headed monster type thing, running backs. They challenged me to learn, multiple positions, whether that's R or W. And, it was a lot of late nights, with running back coach, Coach Jackson, spending time with them on the whiteboards, so it's a lot of memorization. Coach Moss is big on competition, so it's very fast paced. So if you don't know your plays, it's going to stand out, and you might hear about it sometimes. But like I said, you want a coach that's going to challenge you, man. But a lot of flashcards, a lot of note cards. Like I said, he wants you to play fast, because you want practice to be harder than the game, just as far as pace, being accountable for things. And last year was extremely challenging for all of us, and you can tell by the middle to the end of the season, everything started to click. Guys weren't thinking as much, and we finally got over that hump. But I would say, man, it was pretty challenging at the beginning. Especially from the offense we had before. When it's something new, it's always a challenge with that.
Yeah. So, okay, two-part question on Coach Moss. So, one, what's the worst you ever got cussed out last year? Because I know it happened to everyone at least once. And second, he's look, I don't have to tell you, and I don't have to tell people on the outside. Like he can be a really intense, like business like, bring your lunch pail to work guy. Does he have a sense of humor? And how would you describe his sense of humor? So let's tackle the first part of that question. What's the worst you ever got cussed out?
I really got cussed out by Coach Moss. I would say more just like, the accountability type thing. We played Toronto. Personally, I hold myself, we all hold ourselves as professional athletes to a higher standard, but a couple MAs that I had towards the end of the game, had definitely some mental errors. And I knew going into that meeting, Coach Moss, he, I wouldn't say call guys out, but he holds everyone accountable in front of your teammates, So in the meeting, if you made a mistake or a good play, he's gonna let you know in front of your guys. So I know he highlights 15 to 20 plays sometimes, and I knew those two plays were coming up, and he played the play, and I'm just looking at him, and he's like, Fletch, like, who do you have here? I was like, I have the mic, because all game they brought the Sam, but that
Yeah.
particular look, I should have knew in fourth quarter something's coming. Mike came, blitzed, ended up sacking the quarterback untouched. And, I felt like I already knew without him even saying it, but he just gave me that look. And I'm just, like I said, that sticks to me to this day. I talked to Coach Moss the other day and I brought it up. I was just like, that Toronto game still haunts me to this day, So I haven't got anything too crazy from him. Like I said, I know what he expects. So I try to make sure I'm on my A game mentally, physically. So I haven't really got nothing too crazy. But as far as a sense of humor, like Coach Moss, he's a very passionate guy, and he's very passionate about his guys, his team, his staff, his players. He's very passionate. So I think sometimes people take that as he's angry or anything, but he just wants the best for us. He puts a lot of time, energy into it. And I think he has a little bit of sense of humor, got to get a laugh out of him here and there, but he's always smiling. He'd always, pickleball. He'd always find ways to make things fun and entertaining. And yeah, man, it's just he makes it a fun environment. And, that's one of the main reasons why I came back as well, because of Coach Moss. He really believes in you as a player. He's going to hold you accountable at all times.
Can you rate his play on the pickleball court? And be honest, Fletch. I don't want you to throw flowers at it if he doesn't deserve it.
Uh, to be honest, Bear gave me a run for my money
Yeah,
last
his
year.
son.
I'm waiting to come back. I'm waiting to get back to the facility to get my rematch with Bear. But I think Coach Moss is up there. Cody's up there too. I would say 1 and 2 is Moss and Cody, and then the
Really?
rest. Yeah, it's a lot of guys, Joey, that might say they're up there, But I think right now it's definitely Moss and Cody, Coach Moss and Cody, and then I give Bear his flowers, even though we still got a little tension between us and pickleball. But nah, Bear's good too, man. But I got to get on my A game a bit for sure.
Yeah, Bear Moss, Jason's son, got me at the Grey Cup. It's fun, what I told Bear, I said, Bear, when you're winning, you know the score really, really well, and you like to say it out loud throughout the game. But when you're losing, I don't hear you say those numbers too loud. But no, I had a lot of fun playing Bear also. Um,
Yeah.
Okay, but I want take me back to those meetings. Like when you call it an MA, a missed assignment. When you know
Mhm.
that that's coming, you've got a couple coming up on film. Like, what's the feeling like when you walk into that meeting and like in front of everybody, this is going to be
Mhm.
called out? I know it happens to everybody, but just take me through yourself. And are you like squirming in the seat? Like, what's the feeling like?
I mean, it really starts right when you wake up in the morning. You feel that little feeling in your stomach. You're like, oh man, you kind of feel like that anticipation that something's coming. But for me, I walk into the meeting, I'm already knowing, it's probably the first couple of plays, that's gonna come. And I sit in my seat, probably go up to Jesh, like, bro, I already know, man, Moss about to call me out, or Moss about to, show the play, and I might say it to a couple more of my guys on the team, but for me, it's just like I used to struggle with that, I guess, in college too, and I think last year helped me a lot because, like I said, that accountability factor, once you make that mistake once and you hear it, even if it's another play from a teammate, you see him make the mistake, you really learn from it because, Coach Moss does a great job with just telling everyone what's wrong, having that particular player explain it. Like he'll be like, Fletch, what'd you do wrong here? What can you improve on? What'd you see? Where are your eyes? And that accountability, and like I said, that feeling in your stomach, you don't want that to happen again. So when you're on the next play, you're out there or in practice, kind of have that in the back of your mind, and it just challenges you, man. But that feeling doesn't go away till you leave the facility, you get in the car or the metro, and you're going home.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So okay, there's I want to get to some serious business. I mean, we talked about you coming back and wanting to sign ahead of free agency. I mean, there are so many backs, and we named them before that are available or that could be available once free agency opens on the 13th. Just the landscape. It's not even just the CFL, Fletch. I look at when I started watching football, let's say in the late 90s, early 2000s, to now, it feels like the running back position is there's not as much of an emphasis. It feels like teams, especially in the NFL. I mean, you look at some of these stars like Saquon Barkley that has a hard time getting a long-term deal, or Dalvin Cook's been moved around a little bit. Like it just seems like the football community at large thinks you guys are interchangeable. How do you feel about that? Would you like to push back on that, or do you think it's warranted? Like, how do you see it?
I feel like it's an interesting topic, honestly. I think the dynamic of the game has changed, but I also feel like as a running back, you have to be versatile nowadays. Back in the day, even for someone like Brandon Jacobs on the Giants back in the day,
Okay.
260 pounds, 6'2", 6'3", big specimen, and they ran, their offense ran through him at times. Sometimes it was Eli Manning passing the ball, but sometimes it was like, okay, we're gonna hand this rock, he's gonna get us, 5 or 6 yards, and that's what we're going to go with. But now it's a passing league. Guys have to catch the ball in the backfield. Guys have to be durable as well. I think a lot of the label is after 26, 27. That's when you see a decline in running backs. But it's also like some of these guys are getting 300 carries a season.
Yeah.
High school, college, NFL. So it does start to wear down on running backs at times, but I still feel like it's a valuable position. If you look at the Bills and Chiefs game, you saw what they had a game plan. It was to run the football. I think Pacheco had about 16, 17, 18 carries. Cook had about 15, 16 himself, and the game plan was to run the ball. And at the end, Mahomes took it in his hands. He does what he does, but I think the having a run game is extremely important. It's extremely important because it
Yeah.
keeps the defense honest. But I think the main thing nowadays, for instance, Gibbs on the Lions, first round pick, he's one of the highest paid running backs. Because the market's so low as a first round pick. So I think that for teams now, they're like, okay, maybe get him the first round while he's young. Get 4 years out of him, and then they're interchangeable. But for me, that's why for me as a player, I just feel like the more versatile you are, the more valuable you are. If you're one dimensional, then you're gonna have that stigma placed on you. So I think as running backs, we have to make sure we're catching the ball in the backfield, making sure we're running routes, making sure we can get those 2 to 3 yards,
Yeah.
to get that first down. So for me, it's all about versatility nowadays, and just just showing as much as you can. And I think it history repeats itself. I think as time goes on, the market will probably go up as well, and then another position will go down. So I think as time goes on, we'll start to see how valuable it really is.
Yeah, and I like the Giants example with Brandon Jacobs because that was a time where, all right, you want to pound the rock, you go to Brandon Jacobs, and then you want somebody who runs with a little more finesse, a little more speed, you go to Ahmad Bradshaw. Now, I love the
Yeah.
example. What you said about versatility is like most teams are looking for guys who can do both. There's very few guys that are like, hey, okay, you're going to be the bruiser and you're going to catch the ball out of the backfield. And I feel like that's what you are. You've shown you can run between the tackles, but you also catch the ball very well. A la Christian McCaffrey. You mentioned Pacheco before. We'll close out with the Stanback and your thoughts on what's going on here and playing with him. But I want to go, if we can look Super Bowl ahead. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned Pacheco. You mentioned McCaffrey. Um, you remind me a lot the way you play of Christian McCaffrey in the sense that he can ground and pound, he can run between the tackles, but he can get outside too. He can catch the ball, can protect and do all that stuff. So I'm just curious when you're looking at this Super Bowl matchup, McCaffrey versus Pacheco from a running back standpoint. Tell me kind of what jumps out at you and what you appreciate about both guys and the way they play.
I really think McCaffrey, just like we mentioned before, his versatility, man. Like he's a very patient runner. I like the term like finesse runners, where he lets his guys get ahead of him. Trent Williams is a big guy, man. Like that's a tackle you don't want to be in front of as a defender. But I think he's a very patient runner. He's an explosive runner. If you look at the Packers game, that fourth quarter run, I think it was third or fourth quarter, where he just exploded through for a 40-yard run. That's a game changing. That's a game changing player. It's a game changing moments. And those dudes, they might have a slow first or second quarter, but you never know. He can run a Texas route, beat you, get a first down or a touchdown, or he can get a jet sweep, quick sweep, and he'll take it, 60 yards. So that's the thing about McCaffrey I like, man. You can't really shut him down in one way. There's other ways he could beat you as well. And as far as Pacheco, man, like I've never seen a running back in a long time that runs as angry as him. I think, and the thing is, he's patient too. He's not just to get the ball and run straight. He's patient. If you look at his feet, they really never stop moving. He's always has active feet, and I think that's something that stands out to me as a running back. You never want to stop your feet in the hole. You want to keep your feet active. And like I said, he runs hard. He ducks his head down and just takes off. And it's exciting to watch, man. I think he's a very young, exciting player, upcoming player in this league. And I think he's honestly a difference maker for that offense that lost Tyreek Hill, and they have a lot of banged up receivers. So like we talked about before, the running game, I think that's going to be the, turning point in the game at some point. It's going to be that running game. It's going to have to come into play. And I think the team who runs the ball the best will get the win, personally. In my opinion.
Pacheco, Pacheco just looks like he runs angry at the ground, like he's like the ground attacked him personally or something. It's craziness. That
I
was a
know.
heck of a
I
pick.
know.
They did well to
Yeah.
find him in the seventh round. There's no doubt about that.
And that's the thing about running backs, man. Like you said, might get one, first round doesn't always pan out. You can get them in the seventh round, but that's every position. I always say, there's quarterbacks that were drafted high that weren't good. Quarterback Dak Prescott, for instance, he's a fourth round pick.
Yep.
This guy's, he's having a, successful career. So like I said, it's all interchangeable. I feel like.
Um, before we get to, I feel like I've been teasing it to death here. Before we get to the Stanback situation, just you have a fun, I don't know if it's fun, but it's a unique story of how you got to the CFL. I know you've told me this story before. I know I've written about it. I know people have written about it, but just for the sake of CFL and Alouettes fans who are listening to the podcast who maybe don't know the story about how Trevor Harris helped you get into the CFL via social media, can you give us the story of how you winded up coming to Canada?
Yeah. So 2020, COVID happened. I was training in Georgia. Everything shut down. So I ended up going home. Started training kids for a while. Still was working out with my trainer, staying in shape. You never know. You never know what can happen. So one day, we played in the PSAC. It's a Division II conference in Pennsylvania, and pretty much they posted a picture on Twitter and said that I was the last player to win Player of the Year since Trevor Harris since 2010. So I reposted on my Instagram. I tagged Trev, called him the GOAT because he's arguably the best player that ever went to Edinboro. And I tagged Trevor, and he messaged me right away. He was just like, "Hey Fletch, like, how do you feel about playing in the CFL?" And I've always heard about the CFL. We had a couple guys from Edinboro that played, including Trevor, and I'm very familiar with the league. And I was like, of course. I was just trying to get back into football. I had a feeling my career wasn't done. And I was like, of course. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna talk to Coach Elizondo, talk to Brock Sunderland at the time, the GM and head coach. He was like, give me a few days. So a few days went by, and Trevor ended up calling me again. He's like, they saw your film, they're interested, they put you on the neg list. You should hear from them in a couple days. So a couple days went by, ended up getting a call from Coach Elizondo. Coach Elizondo, saying the same thing like my tape, very interested. He was like, you should hear from Brock. Brock calls me, pretty much said the same thing. He was like, I'm going to send you a contract via email, and, we would love to have you here and give you opportunity. So I got the contract, I read it, skimmed through it because I'm just like, all right, this is an opportunity, whatever happens, but, it's opportunity. So ended up signing the contract right away, sent it back to Edmonton, and went to camp. Like I said, went to Canada, first time in Canada, never been, went to Edmonton and had a good camp and made the team, man. So like I said, shout out to Trevor, man. I always show Trevor love because without him, I wouldn't be up here. It's been an amazing experience so far, man. Like I said, it's been amazing.
Instagram to
Never
the league. Instagram to the league,
yeah,
Fletch. I like that. Using social
literally
media the right way.
handed me my first touchdown too in SAS. It was
That's
crazy.
right. That's right.
My first touchdown, he handed it to me in Montreal. So yeah, man,
That's
it was
awesome.
cool.
Yeah,
It's
it's
cool.
crazy how fast things change. Speaking of handoffs, like I often see this pop up on Instagram. It's like, I'll give you. It's always like you can get $1 million if you. I'll give you $1 million, or I'll give you 10 million if you can rush for 10 yards on 5 carries, like to the average Joe. Okay, you know
Yeah.
me. You've seen my build. If I got 5 CFL carries, be honest.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to hurt my feelings, you can hurt my feelings. 5 CFL carries. How many yards do you think I could rush for in a game? Forget the fact that I don't like being tackled. Let's pretend that doesn't happen.
5 carries, Joey.
5 carries. How many yards do you think I can get?
Honestly, Joey, I'll show you. I say about 20,
You're
15 to 20.
crazy. You are crazy.
I think it's all about the O line, though. I feel like our O line is one of the best in the league. So I feel like they'll make a hole for you, Joey. You just got to show that burst, show that athleticism, what you got. I think you're getting 15. I think you're getting 15, 20, man.
You
If
think
you
I
have a
can?
wide open, if you have a wide open hole, if it's cloudy, you got to make a couple moves, Joey. Okay, maybe about 7 or 8, 7 or 8 yards. But I think if they give you a gap, I think you're getting, in 5 carries, 15 to 20. But if it's, you got to, make a couple jump cuts, then yeah, I say about 7 to 8 yards, man. 7 to 8 yards.
I honestly, I think that if I got 5 carries, let's just say out of shotgun, out of pistol, whatever, okay,
Yeah.
I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's no chance that I average 1 yard per carry. I think there's not a chance.
I'm showing you some love. I mean, I'm showing you some love, Joe. I think you'll get a few at least, man. I think you get a few. Like I said, it's all about the O line, boys up front. If they're working for you, I think you'll get something. I think you'll get something.
Okay,
But
but behind an average offensive line, take your teammates out of it. I'm not running
okay,
behind the Alouettes offensive line. I'm running behind B minus offensive line.
okay, okay. 5 carries.
5 carries.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think about 5 carries for about 4 yards, 4 or 5 yards, man. Yeah, I'll give you a yard of carry, man. Just because they might give you a push. They might give you a push at the end.
You know what the trouble's gonna be, Fletch, is when I get taken down for -4 yards on the first carry. I'm gonna have to climb my way out of that hole. So
Got
yeah,
to get at least one, man.
yeah, hopefully. All right. I appreciate you being nice to me. Okay, let's finish off on a more serious note. With with Stanback, the situation, how it's gone here. The Als grant him his release. I know you work closely with him. You were, from all indications, everybody that talks about you always says you're a real patient guy because you had some big games. And the following game, if Stanback was back healthy, then you were out of the lineup more often than not, and he was back in. So I know that there was a competitive element to it, but just working with Stanback, the fact that he's not going to be back now, it seems. I'm curious where your emotions are at, and just what are you going to remember about him and playing with him?
Just aside from football, Stanback's a great guy, man. He's a family man. He loves his teammates. I just talked to him literally yesterday. So outside of that, we're close friends. We talk all the time. Right, when the situation happened, I called him just to see where his head was at. Just tell him, appreciate my time with him, and it's not like a you versus me type thing. And even last year, we both said that about each other. We want to see each other succeed. We wish we could have had more opportunities together on the field, but we also know the circumstances of the league. It's a 3-down league. Stanback's a workhorse. And I told him that, actually a week or two ago. I was just like, man, you got to get your touches, man. At the end of the day, you got to get your touches. And like I said, it was never a competition thing. It was more just we both want to win. We both want to succeed. We both want to, have opportunities. So, at the end of the day, it's part of the business. I think he's going to be fine. Wherever he goes, I know he's going to get opportunities. He's going to, get the things he's looking for. But just him as a teammate, I feel like we always picked each other up. There were certain times where he might have felt down, or certain times where I was discouraged, and we were there. Jesh included. We were all there to pick each other up, hold each other accountable. And last year it didn't won the Grey Cup. So looking back, celebrating at the end, it was all worth it. It was all worth it. Like I said, we all had a chance to sit down and talk, and obviously it didn't go the way we wanted in the backfield, but as a team, as an organization, it couldn't have a better ending. So I appreciate my time with Stanback, man. I learned a lot from him, even the year he was injured. When I got traded here, unfortunately he went down, but that was also an opportunity for me to, have a chance to play and, showcase, what I could do going into the next season to get another contract. So, without him and, what he's been through, I have a lot of respect for him as a player. He's a hell of a player, man, and I wish the best for him and his family.
I want to leave you. Can you leave me with your Super Bowl prediction? Give me the. You don't have to give me the score if you don't want to, but just who's going to win. If you want to throw in the score, that's fine. And I want to know who the MVP is going to be. Now you have to pick a running back.
Honestly, man, I'm not a Ravens fan. I'm from Maryland, so that's the home team. Of course, I'm always,
Ouch.
rooting. But I can't. Last week just told me you can't bet against Mahomes, man. He's starting to get that Brady type of rep where it's just like you can't bet against Mahomes. So I think if San Fran's defense, if they wake up, and lock in how they did in the second half, the Lions game, I think it's going to be a good battle. But I mean, I think Mahomes takes it, man. And I think MVP, it always goes to quarterbacks for the most part. Obviously, I
Yeah.
want a running back. I'd rather
Yeah.
see like Pacheco, someone like Pacheco, 7th round pick. He's had a tough upbringing too. His story's incredible, but got to go Mahomes, man. MVP and the winner, man,
Okay.
for
I
sure.
just the one thing about your Ravens I didn't get, and I watched a lot of Baltimore this year, Fletch. I just you ran the ball so well all year long, and then you get to the AFC title game and you run the ball 6 times. I don't get that one.
Yeah, I think Lamar. I think sometimes the whole passing thing kind of gets to his head where he feels like he has to sit in the pocket a little longer to make those extra throws.
Yeah.
And I think that game he had some lanes when it's everyone wants to slow down tape and you see it when the tape's frozen, but in his head there's a lot going on. But I think he had a that could have been a 100-yard rushing game for him personally, just taking off and scrambling. And there was a clip where Odell Beckham said it to him. He's like, "Man, we need a spark, man. We need you to get going." And I think that was a great opportunity for him to win that game. They had plenty of chances, plenty of
Yeah.
chances. But sometimes the moment's too big, man. Sometimes the
Hey,
moment's too big.
Fletch, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to your big moments come training camp in May. Thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Appreciate you, Joey, man. Thank you for your time, man. Take care.
That was a whole lot of fun. Thanks again to Walter Fletcher, who's going conventional. Patrick Mahomes, MVP of the Super Bowl. So we'll see. We'll see if that's the pick. But the Montreal Alouettes are happy to have Walter Fletcher back for at least one more year. And as he mentioned himself, there's going to be some competition there. He's not taking anything for granted, but he's a guy you have to feel good for. He's a guy who was very, very patient when it comes to opportunity. There's times where he would have some big games, and then William Stanback would come back to the lineup, and then he would have to sit on the bench again and wait patiently. So I'm really happy for Walter Fletcher, really one of the good guys, not just on the Alouettes but around the Canadian Football League. I want to remind you that you can get your 3 or 5 game ticket packs. GoOwlsGo.com, and you can now pick your games. So you go pick up your package, pick up any game you want, put it in a 3 game pack and a 5 game pack, and you're all set. I'm just going to give you a word of advice. I would pick the first home game of the year. because that's the day that the Alouettes are going to raise their championship banner. And I think you want to definitely be there for that. But make sure you pick up your tickets. If you can't make it to that game, make sure that you come to Percival Molson Stadium and encourage the guys because they deserve it. They leave it all out on the field for you. Win, lose, or draw, you know that they'll give it their all. And that's exactly what happened. Even after losses, after 4 losses in a row, you can never accuse the Alouettes of throwing in the towel or not trying last year. And they came back, finished off the season with an 8-game winning streak, and ended up winning the Grey Cup. A reminder, we'll be back on Tuesday with a podcast in French. So we do every Thursday, every Tuesdays in English, every Thursdays in French. We'll have different guests, different topics that we want to talk about, and we'll get to. So if you're a bilingual Alouettes fan, you get to benefit of having 2 new pieces of content per week. If you're not a bilingual Alouettes fan, well, then you'll get the one a week, but that's okay because we like to pack in as much information as possible. Last thing before I go, if you missed it on social media, we do have a 13, 14-minute piece of content, which is basically, watching the final drive of the Grey Cup with players and head coach Jason Moss. So Cody Fajardo takes us into the huddle, explains exactly what was going on. So does Justin Lawrence and Christian Matt and Tyson Philpott. And the list goes on and on and on. Cole Speaker as well. They tell you exactly what's happening, the plays that are being called, what they saw on the field. And it's a big time move, a big time move for all of them to come together and do that for us. So really nicely produced by Sam Boulay-Grimard, who also helps me host the French podcast. So if you missed it, you can find it on all our social media channels. You can find it on the Alouettes website as well. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. This is it. This is the big week. A lot of players, a lot of moving parts, a lot of teams changing. If the Alouettes make any moves, you'll hear about it first on the Alouettes website or on social media by following us at MTL Alouettes on X. Same thing on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook and TikTok too. But just make sure you keep it locked in. Who knows? Danny Machocha may surprise. There could be some surprises coming your way. So make sure you don't miss out between now and February the 13th at noon when free agency begins. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. We'll talk again real soon.